Today in art, we are going to continue our art history unit by talking about modern color and shape. After Van Gogh, many artists felt the freedom to experiment and play with all kinds of different materials, ways to make art, and most importantly, color. There was an art revolution happening during this time and lots of different movements. One of the most well-known movements at this time was a movement called Fauvism and its leader, Henri Matisse. If you can't guess by his name, all of this started again in the country of France. This is an actual photograph of the leader of the Fauvism movement, Henri Matisse. If you can't tell by his name, he is from France. Henri Matisse started off his art career much in a similar style like Van Gogh. He was considered a post-impressionist who took the styles of the impressionist movement but added bold, bright colors to it. However, Matisse was alive during a very exciting time in history. During this time, many inventions were being made. For example, the photograph, as you can see of him. We had cameras being built that could take pictures, and even the beginnings of film or movies. Travel was beginning to become worldwide, with steamships being built and railroads that were in places that only people could have imagined travel could be, and of course the invention of flight with airplanes. On top of that, other technologies were being invented, such as the telegram system, the telephone, the radio, and even the beginning technologies that would later lead to television. It was a very exciting time to be alive. Because of all these changes happening, artists wanted to reflect what was happening in the world at this time. And so, Matisse thought art should be exciting like what was happening, adding bright colors, creating objects that looked real but not quite, and just showing lots of creativity and really the beginning of what we call abstract art. Matisse's influence was so great that he influenced another group of artists living around the same time he did to create another movement called Cubism, which Pablo Picasso was a part of. Matisse's movement, Fauvism, lasted from 1899 to 1908. The Fauves came from a French word that meant wild beast because people thought their artwork was very bold and expressive. You can see a sample there below under the color wheel, how it does take some of the style of the Impressionist and Van Gogh style of post-impressionism, but adds even brighter and bolder colors. Matisse himself continued to be an innovator all throughout his life. In his later years, he had an accident which left him wheelchair-bound for most of his life and had to change the way he did art. To create big paintings and pictures, he designed this bamboo stick to hold a paintbrush at the end, and he created simple paintings with bold color lines. He also then found that he could create artwork from collaging. He would use his scissors to cut out bright pieces of paper and arrange them together to create abstract artwork that people loved. Today, we are going to look at one of Matisse's paintings called the Goldfish Bull. It is one of his most well-known paintings. Matisse painted this in 1912, so it was right at the end of his post-impressionist painting experience before he delved deeply into Fauvism. You can see that it is very similar to Vincent van Gogh's post-impressionist with the bright brush strokes that we can see in the painting if we look closely here. See how you can see the brush strokes just like in Vincent van Gogh's artwork. What makes his artwork unique, though, is this use of color. There's so many colors happening in this. We have the bright red-orange of the fish to the soft blush pink at the top of the painting, along with all the tones of greens. And you get this feeling that this is happening maybe on a patio somewhere with a fishbowl on a table. Look really closely at this painting. You should be able to see 3 ellipses or ovals in this painting. There's an ellipse at the top that makes the top of the bowl. There's an ellipse at the bottom that makes the bottom of the bowl. And then notice how Matisse painted the sides to give it form and a 3D shape. But how many of you can find that 3rd ellipse or oval? That's right, it's where the water is, where we see the top reflection of the goldfish. Now, normally, we wouldn't be able to see this from the angle that Matisse has placed the fishbowl. But again, remember, he was experimenting and trying out new ideas, and so he was challenging the brain to look at a simple goldfish in a bowl in a different way, almost as if we could see it from all the different sides. We'll be using oil pastels and our watercolors to recreate this painting. We are going to draw our own version of Matisse's goldfish in a bowl. We're going to use oil pastels to draw with, and then we're going to use our watercolors to paint in. We're first going to take our oil pastel, and remember how I talked about there were 3 ellipses or oval shapes in the picture. So what we're going to do in about the middle of your paper is we are going to draw an ellipse shape like this. Then we're going to draw 2 vertical lines going up from the ellipse shape. And I bet you're saying to yourself, wow, I didn't know I could draw 3D. We're going to come to the top part here and add another ellipse. And then we're going to draw our lines straight up and then draw our final ellipse. Then you can go back over the sides one more time just to give it a really nice thick line to show the outside of the container. And one more time down here at the bottom. And then we will put another thick line here at the top. Now we are going to draw the table. And you can draw a circle table like Matisse did, where he just had the circle coming out. You could do a square table coming out from it. So it's up to you what you want your patio table to look like. I think I'm going to do mine in a square shape just because I like the contrast of the squares with the ellipse shapes. Remember, this is water back here, so we are going to draw our table in the background because you have to think about this as like a clear glass of water. We're then going to draw the legs of the table, and if you remember, it was a wrought iron table, so the legs were really fancy. So we're just going to draw our lines here and then draw our curving line around like the wrought iron of the table. And then if you wanted to make it extra fancy, we could draw some lines connecting both sides of the table. You could add some more swirls if you wanted to on the legs. We're going to come back here and create a horizon line, which sounds kind of silly that we're creating a horizon line because we're drawing like a patio with plants and things, but we do want to have a place to put all of our plants. So we're just going to introduce a horizon line on either side of our paper like this. Notice I didn't draw it all the way to meet the table. Why do you think that is? That's right, because I'm going to add my plants in. And this is where your imagination can take flight. I want you to think about different plants you may have seen, whether it's in your garden or maybe your grandparents have a garden. Maybe it was in a book you read. Maybe it was plants you've seen at the zoo. I want you to just take a minute and use your imagination and draw in several different plants. One plant that I've seen kind of looks like a heart a little bit. And so I'm going to draw in this plant shape here, and then maybe draw some smaller, similar leaves, like this is all one plant together. I don't know if you noticed that, but sometimes plants' leaves are not all the same size. Sometimes they're big and little because it depends on what part of the plant is growing and what part started first. And I'm just going to draw the stems down and then maybe make a little pot here for my first plant I drew. Maybe this one over here I'm going to imagine is a flower. So I'm going to draw a center and then just be really creative with my petals. Again, remember, Fauvists were not about capturing exact reality, but instead capturing a mood. And remember, we can kind of see some of the plants behind our fishbowl. A mood of happiness and cheerfulness. So it's okay if my plants don't look exactly realistic. Notice how I finished out my background line now that I've drawn some of my plants in. If I wanted to, I could maybe draw some more plants around the sides here. I'm kind of imagining some big leaves on this one that are more oval shaped. I might draw the pot down here for it. Maybe this one has a little dish that the pot is sitting in. This one here, maybe I'll make a little bit more like a fern leaf. So I'll have like lots of little leaves coming off of it. And as you can see, we're really trying to fill up our page today. We don't want to be shy about leaving too many blank spaces. I think down here in the bottom, I'm just going to go ahead, now that I've finished my plants, write my name in. And now there's one last thing we're missing, and that is right, it's the fish in the middle. So we're going to just continue that ellipse shape, except at the end, I'm going to put a triangle shape for the tail. Maybe I have another fish swimming here. And notice I've been very careful to fit my fish in between my lines here. I think that looks good. If you remember, when we get up here to the top, we will add the reflection of them in the water. That's all I'm going to need my oil pastel for. So now I'm going to get to start painting. Now, if you remember, watercolors have a tendency to go all kinds of places when they touch each other. So we're going to work in sections to get our different places dry, and then that way we won't have our colors bleed into each other. So we're actually going to start first with the water. So you want to pick a nice blue color, whatever blue you have. And remember, we can paint over the top of oil pastels because oil and water do not mix. And we're just going to get all our water painted in. And it's okay if it is darker in places and lighter in some with the value. Again, that just creates interest to whoever's looking at our picture. Plus, if you looked really closely at water, it's not all exactly one color. There are places where it's darker and lighter because of the shadows that naturally occur from the light hitting it. Now, I might add one more layer of blue down here at the bottom, just because that's going to be the darkest part of my fishbowl. It's farthest away from the light. And then just take my brush and blend it up a little bit. And now we can let that dry for a little bit. Notice how I painted the blue through the middle ellipse and the bottom ellipse. I painted it through the table here and this part of the wall in the background. That's because we want our fishbowl to be the main thing. We're going to come down here and now paint the floor. Remember, the Fauvist really liked bright colors, so you may pick any bright color you want to paint your floor. I'm actually going to do pink. I've never seen a pink floor in someone's house in real life, but I think pink would be a fun color to capture the Fauvist spirit and do my floor in. So go ahead, find a fun color. Could even be your favorite color. Maybe you really like orange or yellow. You could do that for your floor as well. So have a little fun with your artwork today, because it doesn't have to be exactly realistic. Now, you might have to do like I did a little bit here and paint in some spaces where your plants are. You need to be a little careful, but for the most part, our oil pastels are going to protect our plant space. So we won't have to worry about the pink going onto our plants. If you get a little bit on there, like here, see I've got a little bit on that one, I can just take my paper towel and kind of lightly dab on it. And it's not going to make it go exactly all the way away, but it will take some of that pink out. And you know what? If you have a little bit of different colors on your plants, I think Matisse would approve. Think about his portrait of his wife. She had all kinds of colors on her face that were not normally there. So I think it would be all right if you had a little bit of a different color on your plants. Now, as I'm finishing up my pink, our next place we are going to paint is going to be those plants in the background. So you might start thinking about what color you want for the pots of the plants. Do you want to do them both green? Do you want to do green and yellow? And you might say, well, I don't have a lot of colors to mix together. That's all right. I'm going to show you how to mix some colors in your watercolor lid here, so that way you can create different hues of your colors. Okay, that looks great. I'm going to start here first with this plant. Now, I happen to have a lot of different greens in my watercolors, so if you do, you don't really have to worry about this. But if you don't have a lot of greens, I'm going to show you how to mix colors. So you can take a green color, you can put it in your lid, and then maybe you want to go back to that blue color you used and get some blue and just mix it with your green. And you can see that creates a dark blue-green color. Maybe after you get it mixed, you realize, ooh, I got too much blue. I need some more green. So you can just mix that in till you get a nice color that you like. And then you can go in and paint that in. And that is the way to mix watercolors. I don't know if you ever knew that. A lot of kids don't think you can mix watercolor paints. You just have to use what's right there, but you can do that in your lid. So I'm going to paint my painting here, or my plant here. And get that all painted in. And then if you want, you can just take a corner of your paper towel and kind of wipe on your lid where you mixed that color if you had any left. And then your lid's all clean and ready to get colored mixed again. Remember, these are my flowers over here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my flowers in, but I'm not going to paint the center in yet. I'm going to do that very last here. I think my flowers, I don't know, I think they need to be red. I'm feeling red for some reason. So I'm going to paint my flowers in red. Again, I'm making sure to paint right behind there where you see the top of the fishbowl, because remember it's clear, so we should be able to see through it, right? Paint all that in. And then we're going to go back and paint our pots in. So I think I'm going to paint an orange color, maybe this one over here. Ooh, I really like this orange color. I'm going to have to use it again. Remember, when we repeat colors in our artwork, that creates unity. So I think I know exactly where I'm going to repeat that orange color at. And I'll show you in just a minute. And then I'm going to paint this other bowl here. And I think I might do, or really plant pot, I might do some yellow here. Again, I'm picking lots of color. We're using lots of color today. Okay, remember about that orange color? We're going to go now to the table. And I think I want to paint my table legs that orange color. You don't have to do that. In the original painting, Matisse kind of had a green color for it, but feel free and play with color and pick out whatever color you'd like to paint our table legs. Okay, I'm going to take my finger and touch where we painted the floor. It's just a little damp. So you can see I don't have any pink coming back on my finger, and it just feels a little wet. So it's probably dry enough we can go ahead and paint these plants and those pots as well. I think I'm going to use a teal blue I had here for this plant. For my fern I made. And I like that pop of yellow at the top there, so I'm going to add that yellow in again down here for the vase of this one. And then one more plant left. Ooh, this looks like a jungle green color. Remember, if you need to stop and mix different greens if you want, you can do that. And I'm thinking back to the color wheel, and I remember red and green are complementary colors, and they make each other stand out. And that's what Matisse was all about, using color to stand out brightly. So I'm going to paint this pot, the same red I painted at the flowers. And not only am I using complementary colors to make it stand out, but you can see I'm repeating my reds. So it's creating some unity in this brightly colored picture. Okay, I'm feeling back here. Feel like it's slightly damp, but again, I'm not having any color come up off my finger. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my wall. And remember, my wall can be seen through the glass, so we're going to paint that as well back there. And we're also going to paint it right here where the blue is. And it's going to layer colors upon colors, so it's going to give it a really cool and interesting effect. So I've decided in my mind I wanted to use a purple color. Purple is another one of my favorite colors, and we saw a lot of purple in Matisse's work. Do you see how I'm painting straight over the top of that blue, and it gives that layered look of the water? And then notice how the purple changes up here at the top. As it should, because we are looking at the wall without the fishbowl in front of it. Pretty cool trick, huh? So yes, another thing you've learned, you can layer watercolors on top of one another after they dry a little bit, and then it gives it another layer and dimension. I'm so excited to see what colors you have picked that are nice and bright and cheerful. I can't wait to look at your finished goldfish pieces. Again, I can paint right over the top of my oil pastels and know that you're still going to be able to see my design because oil and water do not mix, and the water won't wash away the oil pastel. After we paint our wall, we're only going to have two more things to paint. We're going to paint our goldfish, which we're going to use orange for. And then we have to paint our table. So I want you to be thinking, oh, and look here. I forgot this corner of the wall, didn't I? See how that looks funny? Yeah, it doesn't look like the wall is behind our fish tank where we can see the water in front of it. So I'm going to go back in and just paint my purple over it. There we go. And then that looks like the wall is shining through the water in the fishbowl. And we're actually going to do our goldfish last because they were closest here to the wall when we were painting it. And like I said, we're going to do a really pretty red-orange. We're going to mix red and orange together to get our goldfish color. So as we're finishing up the wall here, I want you to think about what color do you want to do for the table? What bright color? We don't want to do red or orange because our goldfish need to stand out there in the center. So try to think of a color you have not used yet. And we want a color. We don't want to use brown or black or anything like that because remember, Matisse was full of color. I'm going to go in with my yellow while I'm thinking about that and just real lightly paint the center of my flowers here. And now I'm ready for my table. I think what I'm going to do actually, after thinking about this, is I think I'm going to use the yellow. I really think yellow is a bright, happy color, and I think that it'll look nice against the orange of the table and the purple walls, and it'll help kind of unify my yellow that's here and here together. So then my project looks like it makes sense together. So I'm just going to paint in my yellow. And then again, to make my fishbowl seem three-dimensional, I'm just going to paint yellow right over that blue so it looks like we can see the other side of the table. Okay, now we're ready to mix our paint for our fish. So our fish are going to be mainly orange. So we want to get our orange nice and wet and just really fill in somewhere on your lid there with your orange. And I'm going to rinse my brush out really well. I'm just going to dip it just a little bit in my red, not too much, and then swirl it together. And you can see that creates a nice red-orange color, or in the art world, the fancy name for it is scarlet. And I'm just going to take my scarlet color and paint over my fish. And then if you remember back to Matisse's, he had those little reflections at the top. So we're just going to add some little reflections of the fish as they shine through the top of our fish bowl. And that completes our goldfish painting. You are going to leave these here in the art room to dry overnight, and then you'll get to take them home. So I want you to be great listeners as we talk about cleanup directions.
Henri Matisse. This sure brightens up this gray, rainy day.
Yeah. Lots and lots of colors. And look.
I love it. A cool design with just colors.
Oops.
That was funny. You look like a wild animal.
And Dada, wow! You make a cool painting.
Well, it was cool. This is not a gray day at all.
Whoa, that is cool, Maddie.
Well, it's not exactly what I was going for, but it kind of looks like something I saw in one of my books.
I'll get you a cloth to wipe your face. Oops. Huh? Here you go, Maddie.
Hey, this is who I was looking for on my bookshelf. Henri Matisse, the master of color. Thanks, Dada.
And who have we here?
Monsieur Matisse, what a surprise!
Maddie, you still have paint on your face?
I forgot. I was so excited.
C'est très bon. Being excited and forgetting what others think is the only way to create art.
Dada, crazy! Hey, Maddie, look at this!
A lot of people laughed at my painting, Woman with a Hat, at its first public showing. They didn't like it at all. They called me Fauve, which is French for wild beast.
Fauve! Oh, that was like me. I turned Maddie and her painting into wild colors.
I love her hat. It's just a bunch of colors that go up, up, and up.
Well, gigantic, outrageous hats were all the fashion back then. And so, that's what I painted. A gigantic, outrageous hat.
And look, Maddie, her face is pink and green, and she has a yellow dab on the tip of her nose, just like you did.
Yeah, it matches the big purple dot under her chin and the green beside her face.
Dada, yeah. With all those colors around her, it makes her colorful face look normal.
Yeah, this whole painting is so colorful. It's energetic and...
It's impulsive, oui. Colors are what matter to me. How they generate feelings and moods. How they interact with one another.
Yes!
Yeah!
And different combinations of colors and patterns and shapes can generate very different feelings.
Ooh, this rug has a calming feeling. Da-da-da-dee.
This painting kind of makes me feel relaxed. It makes my eyes glide all around it, like Dada on that rug.
Ooh, yeah.
I saw this room as one big decorative pattern.
Huh? Hey, Maddie, the painting got unflat.
I can see it's a room, but it's flat. Monsieur Matisse, how did you make that room look like a flat, smooth surface?
I painted everything with equal balance. One thing doesn't stand out more than another. I gave each thing its own space and shape on the paper. The tablecloth had that shape, with the pears and the eggplants, vase and statue on top of it. I saw the screen, mirror, window and door as simple rectangle shapes. And the view through the window and mirror are just shapes of color I saw. And of course, the walls and floor look like the same thing, just a big flat pattern surface.
A pattern of a room.
Well, I actually called it Still Life with Eggplants.
Huh? But it's not very still because the eggplants look like they're sliding off the table.
Yeah, and in the mirror, they're back on the table, but in a different place.
It's fun to play around with the space, colors, and shapes of things.
Yeah, and make a whole new picture with them.
Like that one. Da-da, whoa! This one is made only with colors, cut out into shapes.
Monsieur Matisse, you've covered your walls with colorful shapes.
Yes, my excitement carries me away. I forget about everything else.
You were carried away, all right.
Oui, oui, indeed. Well, I cannot do everything I love as easily as I used to. And so, I've created a garden here in my studio where I can walk.
You've made a color garden from cutout shapes.
Yes. I call my new style of art paper cutouts. I draw with scissors and play with colors. I can make them big or very small. And then arrange and rearrange them until it pleases me. Yes, perfect. There.
Cool. Cutting into color.
Fun, fun, fun. This one looks like a party.
Yes, I call it Sorrows of the King.
Huh? Sorrows of the King? But that sounds sad.
Yeah, but it doesn't look sad. I see music and laughing and dancing. Yeah, I'm confused.
Well, the king is very old, but he plays music and he surrounds himself with the memories of laughter and dance, and they soothe all his ears.
Yeah, how can the old king be sad with all those colors around him?
I want to do paper cutouts too. Thank you so much, Monsieur Matisse. I'm all excited.
That's good. And remember to forget everything else.
Look, Dada, I've got the perfect shape to add.
Where do you want him, Maddie? Here? Or over here?
I feel it would be nice up in that corner.
Like this?
Maybe down a bit. And move that triangle just above it. Yeah.
Terrific! I like that!